So once again, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us for our regular Sunday service. And we'll begin the service with a moment of silent meditation, followed by the recitation of the name of the Buddha, or the Nembutsu. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. We'll now have readings, and I'm just going to pull this up. Oops. We're going to begin with the homages and three treasures, and you'll see it either on your screen, or if you have the handout, you can join us by reading it. Homage. Hard it is to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult it is to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we are hearing them. If we do not gain emancipation in the present life, we may not be free from sorrow in the ocean of births and deaths. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures. We go to the Buddha for guidance. May we always walk in the way that leads to enlightenment. Everyone. We go to the Buddha for guidance. May we always walk in the way that leads to enlightenment. We go to the Dharma for guidance. May we be submerged in the depth of the teachings and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. Everyone. We go to the Dharma for guidance. May we be submerged in the depth of the teachings and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. We go to the Sangha for guidance. May we all with one accord live the life of harmony in the spirit of oneness, free from the bondage of selfishness. Everyone. We go to the Sangha for guidance. May we all with one accord live the life of harmony in the spirit of oneness, free from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriads of kalpas, hard it is to hear such excellent and profound teachings. Now we are able to hear and receive them. Let us try to understand the Tathagata's teachings. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Next, we will have the sutra chanting, and this morning we're going to be chanting the Jusei. We'll be chanting it both in Japanese and then later in English. Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs, Naman Nobs. 小兵具政府上昇学合詞成仏道妙正常寺母苦行未消門政府上昇学利欲人少年上映主門業四愚無浄土立正天人師人力現代語不正無才道少女三苦名交際集約な外一へげ飯顧問は閉塞小悪道通達全宗門構造上満足いよろじも日月集中期天公無限一種海要素公正愚読法上大集中説法四式供養一切物具足習徳本元年出上魔徳意三害用女仏無下知通達未不詳願学へ力同志最小尊志願や語が大戦を感動国書伝に当時妙言Next, we'll be chanting this in English, and for the English chanting, it's one syllable per beat, except for where there's a hyphenation, then it's two syllables in one beat. Namandaps, namandaps, namandaps. may I not attain Buddhahood, should I not provide to all for countless kalpas to come, aid in times of suffering. May I not attain Buddhahood, I will reach enlightenment, but unless my Buddha name resounds throughout the universe, may I not attain Buddhahood. I will practice a noble path, wisely, mindfully, free of greed, seek to reach the supreme way, be a guide to one and all. May my power shine great light to illumine and dispel the darkness of the three poisons, and save all from suffering. With eyes of wisdom I'll remove the darkness of ignorance. I will close all evil paths, open gates of highest good. When I attain Buddhahood, light will shine throughout all lands, light brighter than sun and moon, outshining all heavenly lights, giving my virtues to all, not forsaking anyone. I will proclaim the Dharma like the roar of a great lion, bowing before all Buddhas, steadfastly gaining virtues, with wisdom fulfilling my vows. I shall be a guide to all, like the wisdom of my teacher. May my wisdom also shine all throughout the universe, and illumine one and all. If I shall fulfill these vows, may all lands tremble with joy. From the heavens wondrous flowers rain down upon all the lands. Nama, Nama, Nama. virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind, we are born in the land of peace. No one knows, no one knows, no one knows. Okay, let me start. So before I give my Dharma talk or Dharma message this morning, I wanted to share with you just a brief encounter that I had last Sunday after the service. Was it last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago? May have been 2 Sundays ago now. After the service, I visited one of our members who was in his last hours of life out at a senior home in by the Langley bypass there, by Westbrook Mall. Anyways, he had quite severe dementia, and so in the last couple of years, he wasn't able to recognize even his own children. And when I went to visit him, he wasn't able to speak. He was murmuring stuff, but he wasn't able to speak. But the funny thing or interesting thing was when I put on my robes, he immediately quieted down. And when we did a short chant, he started chanting the Nembutsu. So I just wanted to let you know that by joining these services and by chanting regularly, it's getting into the core of your body. It's like osmosis, and it seeps in. So somewhere deep down inside, it remains with you. So even when we have something like dementia, that's one aspect of our mind, if you will, that may go. But this chanting, it actually stays with you. So that's a good reason for chanting and joining these services. Okay, so that even if you have dementia in the future, you'll still have this chanting. It's seated deep within you. Okay. So, anyways, recently we've had a number of funerals in a row, and I've been recently thinking about the downside of life, if you will, the how people are passing, and how even with the COVID, all the lives that have been lost through this, and it's very easy for us to get really downcast over this. But the other day I was walking our dogs in the morning, and as we were walking, I noticed suddenly that in fact, all around us, we are teeming with life. I began looking at the vegetations, and especially this time of year, when you're seeing everything growing so wildly, you begin to realize that, we think of our lives as the life, but in fact, life is all around us. And I wanted to share, first of all, the poem. Well, you're all familiar with it, On White Ashes. And when we read this, when we deeply consider the transient form of man's life, we realize that in the world, from beginning to end, nothing is more fragile and fleeting than the course of human life. Thus, we have not yet heard of anyone receiving human form that lasts for 10,000 years. Life swiftly passes. Can a person preserve his body for 100 years at the present time? Not knowing whether death will come today or tomorrow, those who depart before us are as countless as the drops of dew. Therefore, in the morning we may have radiant health, in the evening we may be white ashes. When the winds of uncertainty strike, our eyes are closed forever. When the last breath leaves our body, the healthy color of the face is transformed, and we lose the appearance of radiant life. Our loved ones may gather and lament, but to no avail. When such an event occurs, the body is sent into an open field, and when it has vanished with the midnight smoke, nothing is left but white ashes. This is indeed indescribably sad. Thus we see that what man cannot control is the passing away of young and old alike. Therefore, we are brought to understand that each moment of our life, every day, is precious and unrepeatable. Cherishing this truth, let us entrust ourselves to Amida Buddha and repeat the sacred name. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So, the reason why I read this today is not the whole poem, but I wanted to point out there's one line here that's really quite famous, and by reading it over and over through all the funeral services, it's sort of ingrained in me. But it's the line of not knowing whether death will come today or tomorrow. Those who depart before us are as countless as the drops of dew, right? The reason why this is important is I introduced this poem before, so some of you might be familiar with it. I encountered this poem at one of our members' house when I went to do a service there. In the living room, there was this very large scroll, and it was written in Japanese. 二度とない人生だから、梅雨草の梅雨にも巡り合いの不思議を思い、足をとどめて見つめてゆこう。Or, as I translated it, because life cannot be lived over again, even in the dewdrop of a blade of grass, I marvel at the wonders that bring it about. Stop and appreciate the wonders of life. So, the previous letter by Denyo Shonin was talking about how life, the impermanence, is like the dewdrops. But this poem by the Buddhist poet Shinmin Sakamura, who was a Jodo Shinshu follower, so I'm sure he got this sort of idea from Denyo Shonin's poem. But he's talking about how even a dewdrop on the blade of grass, it comes about by many causes and conditions. So appreciating even something as simple as that. As I mentioned, when I went outside for the walk and I began to see life all around us. In fact, even though there is passing as well, there is also, in this moment, infinite life that surrounds us. And we are all interconnected in this sense, in that we are all part of this oneness that exists. I had another experience just earlier this week. Again, it's to do with funerals, but on Monday, I received a phone call from the funeral home saying there's a family here that wanted to hold a simple Buddhist funeral service. So the funeral director gave me the name of the person, and I wasn't familiar with the name. So after I hung up, I contacted my uncle Kuni, who usually has a good pulse on the community here in Steveston. He knows a lot of people. So I asked him, do you know this person? Does this person sound familiar? And he says, no, I haven't heard that name before. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then later in that day, the daughter of the person who passed away, the person who passed away was 90 years old. But the daughter contacted me, and she told me that, in fact, her mother had lived for a long time in Ontario, in Windsor, Ontario. Her husband had worked for Ford, and they were in Windsor, and then later to Michigan, and then they retired in Linden, in Washington here, where her husband passed away in 2003. So in the meantime, her two daughters moved from London, Ontario, here to Richmond. So in 2006, this person moved up from Linden, Washington, to join her daughters here in Richmond. So I got the sort of background, and that this person who passed away, her family during the war or after the war, they moved to Montreal, and we were in Montreal for a while. And then she moved out to Windsor. But so I had only spoken to the daughter over the phone. But when I met them on Thursday for the funeral, before the funeral started, the daughters came up to me and they said, "You know, I think it was either your father or your grandfather did the funeral service for our grandmother." So the mother of the person who passed away. Okay, and so he said, "I think your father or grandfather did the funeral service for my grandmother in Toronto," she says. And I said, "Oh, in Toronto?" So I said, "Well, what year was that?" And they said, 1993. And I said, "Oh, that was me. I was the one that conducted the service." So, so it turns out that I actually knew the family, the person that passed away. She comes from a family with 10 siblings. So I didn't remember her personally, but I know some of her siblings quite well, actually. And so it's a small, very small world. But later that night, I was telling my wife this story. I said, "Gee, I must look really young if they thought it was my father or grandfather that did the service." And my wife flipped it around on me, saying that, "No, you looked that old when you were in 1993. So, but anyways, this full circle of how we're interconnected in life. You know, we may not know at that time the interconnectedness, but we are really interconnected. I also did feel very old in that it's 2 generations of funerals that I've done. So it means that I must have been doing this for quite a while now, that I'm now conducting funerals for 2 generations in one family. But in this moment, right now, we are interconnected, not only by Zoom, but in the life that is surrounding us. And so as this Sakamura Shinmin states in his poem, is that we should stop to appreciate the wonders of life right now. And I think when we recite the Nembutsu, it's a reminder to us of this oneness that we share. And so at this moment, if I can ask you again to please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Now for finally some wonderful news or good news. You know, all these months that we've been locked down and being apart, well, we're finally able to open the temple up again. So starting in June with the Shotsuki service, we will be opening the temple for smaller gathering. We're going to have a maximum of 30 people. We're putting a limit of 30 people in attendance in person. The government guidelines state that we could have up to 50 people, but I feel a little uncomfortable still to have 50 people in here. It's very strange how our mindsets have changed. Now we think 50 people, oh, that's a big crowd. So we will be holding services here with pre-registration requirement. And I also asked if anybody's interested in coming for the Shotsuki service, if we can limit it perhaps to families who are observing the Shotsuki service, that will be appreciated just because of the limited seating. Also, with that, we are hopefully planning that we might be able to do some form of Bon Odori in the 3rd weekend of July 17th. We won't have food trucks or, serving food or anything like that, but it will be a celebration of coming together, as well as to remember all lives that have been lost over this year and a half, during the pandemic, when we have not been able to get together. So it will be a dance of both celebrating coming together, but also the lives of those that have gone on. So those are, I think, two wonderful pieces of news that we can actually look forward to something now. So, but I will be continuing with this Zoom portion of the service as well, just because there are people from other places who would not be able to attend regular service. So we'll have both, as we did when we were opened last year for a period of time. It'll be both on the Zoom as well as in person. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and